to give you an idea of what the life cycle of a product might look like, let's think of a very simple product. How about the paperclip? Let's think of the paperclip as our final product and work backwards to see what the paperclip's life cycle looked like. So if we think of the paperclip as coming out of our manufacturing phase, that's our end product. We'll put it here, end of our paper. That's our end result from manufacturing phase again. We're not thinking about the use or waste management. Let's just think about what goes into making a paperclip. If I'm working backwards, well, a paperclip is just a coiled piece of steel, right? So there needed to be some effort, some coiling, some energy put into coiling that steel. Oh, I just said we needed energy into that coiling machine, right? Well, what is our energy? Where does our energy come from? We turn on the lights, we plug in the coiling machine, but where does that come from? Well, for us here in Ohio, mostly from coal, but let's put in fuels. We don't know where this paperclip is being made. And to get fuels, maybe coal or maybe oil, what goes into producing fuel? Well, we need to drill, we need to excavate maybe, and there's probably pipelines involved or some transport. Now let's think back from coiling. What are we coiling? We're coiling a piece of steel, right? So we needed to manufacture steel into a little rod, and that's also got an energy input. And again, we can expand this energy. What exactly is that? Fuels, ... We've already shown that down below. And what is steel exactly? Well, steel is made up of iron ore and carbon. How do we get carbon? Well, we need equipment to make it, right? Energy as well, ... What makes up the equipment? Well, probably metal materials. Where do we get those materials? Probably from drilling or extracting. We could expand this further outwards. Let's go back to iron ore. How do we get iron ore? From mining. What goes into that? Oh, machinery, energy. And again, machinery is probably metals, maybe even steel. And what goes into steel? Iron ore, carbon. We can extend that one outward, extend our energy outward. So this is an abridged life cycle for a really simple product. But what does a life cycle look like for something more complicated? We're just thinking about paperclip. What goes into that? What about if we were to expand this to a car or a computer? Here we just worked backwards from a final product through the immediate processes and then further back through those processes. I'm using arrows to describe inputs, but I haven't even thought yet about the outputs. What are those? Well, what kind of outputs come from mining? We could think about an arrow going out, probably wastes in terms of wastewater, air emissions, solid wastes. What are some of the outputs from making steel? Again, waste, water, emissions, waste products. We've got outputs probably as well at each phase. Carbon, mining at iron ore, producing iron ore. Energy production, we probably have outputs as well of emissions. Drilling, we can put outputs there of emissions as well. So we're getting even more complicated, but these arrows I use to describe flows. Input flows are arrows that move into our different processes, and output flows are the arrows going out. If we care about particular flows, we could highlight them. Maybe I'm looking specifically at emissions, and so I could highlight where on my life cycle, where are emissions occurring. This is called hotspot analysis, and we'll get into more details on how to do this later on.